right, how's everyone doing today? Well, someone requested me to make some sourdough bread since I posted some pictures on my Instagram. She wanted me to do some tips and tricks on how I make it, as I don't think she's been having an easy time with it. So this one's for you. I think her name is Scribbler on the Instagram. I will post a link to the recipes and everything I do down in the description box. So I'm assuming that you already have your sourdough starter ready to rock and roll. You've already made it. I can probably try doing a video later on how to make it from scratch, but it takes about a week. And I don't have the ingredients for it right now. So my sourdough starter has been sitting for about 2 weeks now. Ideally you want to feed it every week, but I haven't been here for 2 weeks, so here we go. So I'm gonna take probably half a cup of this. Actually, there's a little bit of water on it. I'm gonna drain the water off of it first. Actually, there's not too much, a little bit there. Sometimes if you don't use it for a while, you get quite a bit of water on the top, so you want to drain that off. So I'll take like half a cup of it into a new mason jar here. And now what you need to do is feed this. So I have a little mason jar funnel here. And what you want to do is get a cup of flour. Just top her in here. 3/4 cups of water. Doesn't matter, it can be warm, cool, not cold. You probably want it a little warmer than cooler. So 3/4 cups of water. You pour it into your mason jar there with your flour and your starter. And what I like to do is, if you've got some kind of bigger fork or something long you can stick in your mason jar, just stick it in and give it a good stir. So you want to mix up all the flour, water, and your starter together. And just making sure you scrape the bottom too to get all the flour off the bottom there. And the flour will feed your starter. And the cool thing about sourdough is you don't need yeast. It's all natural yeast that's in the air that gets into your starter and feeds it, along with the nutrients in your flour here. So that's all you need to do for your starter to feed it. A lot of people, what they like to do is put an elastic band on it so they know where they've started. But generally, when I'm making my sourdough bread, I don't care. I let it sit, rises up to the top, then it's good to go. So this process can take anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. If you're gonna make your sourdough bread, sometimes it can take up to 2 days. You can do it in a day if you're rushing it, but ideally 2 days is more ideal. So I'll walk you through that process today and tomorrow. So once I've got my sourdough starter here, I just pop my mason jar lid on, just not tight because you want some of the gases to release. Good tip on this, my house is really cold, so I like to use my oven. Turn the oven light on so it warms it up, and that's going to speed up your process here. So sometimes if your sourdough is really active, you'll get it rising within 3-4 hours, and then you can get it going. So I'll pop this in the oven here, and then I'll show you guys in a few hours what it looks like once it's risen a bit. Another quick tip too, it's smart if you put a plate underneath your mason jar in the oven. I've had it sometimes where I've gone out working, or I've gone away for a few errands. I come back and it's exploded up over, and it gets into your bottom of your oven, and it's not fun to clean up. So plate underneath the mason jar is pretty handy to do as well. While my sourdough starter is feeding itself and eating and rising, I thought I'd take the quick time here to talk about things to bake your sourdough in as well. So everywhere I've seen online, they always talk about your Dutch ovens, which I've never had, except for now. I picked some up at a discount store, brand new. They're $54 for 2 Dutch ovens. I don't need 2 Dutch ovens, but you can't turn it down because the regular $200 plus. So I'm going to try with Dutch ovens now. But what I've been using lately, or since I've been making sourdough, is just a Corningware container like this. It's been amazing. It's worked so well, and just the lid for it. So those are the 2 things. I'll open this up quickly because I just got home actually. So we will see what it looks like. Hopefully they're a good size. There's a What size are they? They're 3.4 liter and a 6.6 liter. So let's pull these guys out. I'm pretty excited to try these out for bread and see how well they work. It's like Fort Knox getting into here. Still going. Okay, so this is the bigger of the two. This one definitely is going to be too big to make sourdough with. This is more for soups and stocks and things like that. But the smaller one here should be the perfect size to complement my Corningware one as well. This is going to be perfect because it's pretty much the same size as the Corningware one. So what we'll do once I bake it, we're going to do this batch that I make does 2 loaves. So we'll try one in here and one in the Corningware, and we'll see the difference between the two. So you guys can check it out. But like I said, don't worry about if you don't have Dutch ovens, because I know they're expensive. Use Corningware if you have it. It's been working great for me, and my bread's been turning out perfect with it. Alright, so I decided to do a double batch. So I ended up feeding my sourdough starter again this morning, since it wasn't super active, being not used or fed for 2 weeks. So here it is right now. It was about here this morning when I fed it. I think I fed it around 8 o'clock this morning, and it is now 1:30. So I'm going to give it another 2 or 3 more hours, and by that time it should be up here fairly quickly. So I've just left that in the oven still with the light on. Now this recipe is in ounces. So what I will do, I'll link the recipe that I've been using in the description box so you can actually link to that. One of the things that I like to do is sift my flour. I've got this flour from Costco, came in a big 20 kg bag. For some reason there's been some little chunks in it. It almost feels like it's like dough they've had, and it's just left chunky dough in there. I don't know, it's really weird. So I've been sifting it out, and I find that's been making a nice bread, having a sifted stuff. So I'm just gonna grab a measuring cup here, and what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna sift a whole bunch right now, and then that way when it comes time to measure it, it'll be quicker just to dump it all in. And I'm just using a nice fine sieve. Just give it a little bit of a shake, get it all out. And this recipe calls for, I think it was 1.4 ounces. So 1 pound, 4 ounces of flour. So I'm going to need 2 pounds, 8 ounces for the double batch. The reason I'm sifting this as well, as you can see here, this flour is kind of lumpy. So I want to make sure all the lumps are out, so that when I'm doing the auto lease step, it's nice and smooth and it's not lumpy at all. It's not very fun when you work with dough that has lumps in it. Then when you try to mix it, it's still kind of lumpy and you don't always get the lumps out, so you end up having like dry flour in the middle of your bread, which definitely is not appealing. Alright, I'll get this finished up and then show you the next step once I get this part done here. Alright, so I'll just give you the quick recipe here, but like I said, I'll link it in the description box as well, so you have reference for it. So it's 1 pound, 4 ounces of flour, and then on top of that, I usually do like 0.3 ounces of salt. You can adjust that to your taste. You can go more or less. Sometimes I'll put a full ounce in, sometimes a little bit less, depending on the day. So it's all up to you. Then the water, you usually do 1 pound, 5 ounces of water. Usually I'll adjust that a bit too. Sometimes I put a little bit more when I'm pouring in, I just leave it. But 1.5 is usually the amount I use. And then with the water as well, you want to put in 11 ounces of your sourdough starter as well. So what I'm going to do first, I'm doing this a little backwards today because usually I have my sourdough starter ready, but I'm going to get my flour measured out first and my salt. So I've got this great little scale here. I'll put a link in the description box as well. If you guys want to check it out on Amazon, you can buy it. That's where I got it. If you use my link, I get a bit of a percentage of what is sold. So I gotta find my measuring cup here. So I'm just gonna take my flour and measure it off in here quickly. So 1 pound, 4 ounces of flour. If you guys don't have a scale, you can just use a converter online to convert it to grams or whatnot, whatever measurement you prefer to use. It's kind of weird that you use pounds for measuring water. It's always made no sense to me. So I've got 1 pound, 4 ounces of flour. For salt, I usually use a pink Himalayan salt. I like that. It's nice, fine, and I can use it for everyday cooking as well. So I'm probably gonna put in half an ounce of salt today. So that's 0.5 of an ounce. Okay, there you go. I'm gonna dump it in my bowl here. And since I'm doing a double batch, I'm gonna double that up again and get that measured out. Once I get that ready, I'll come back when my sourdough starter is ready and we'll show you the next step. All right, sourdough starter has come up pretty high now. I'm happy with that. So next what we're gonna do is get our water. So it's 1 pound, 4 ounces of water. So I'm gonna use my scale here. I'm gonna tare it out. And I'm just using some lukewarm water. So I went over by just a little bit. If you're over by 0.1 or 2 ounces, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. So now I've got 1 pound, 4 ounces of water. I'll do 11 ounces of sourdough starter. And I always usually put a bit more in than it calls for. Doesn't really matter with the starter, I don't think there's more or less. Okay, there we go. So like I said, I'm doing a double batch, so I'm going to double this up again. Get some more water here, a little heavy again. We'll do another 11 ounces. And I basically use all the sourdough from this jar here. So I'll grab my other jar out that I've got going here. See if I can't get the last little bits of it out. This one hasn't rose as much, but that's all right. I'll use that later on. Okay. So once you're done with your sourdough starter, I like to stick it in the fridge and then you can save it for your next week or whenever you're gonna make your next batch. So stick it in the bowl here. I'll set everything off to the side. Now one tool that's really handy with making sourdough bread is a baker's scraper. It helps you scrape along the sides of the bowl and everything to get everything mixed up nicely. Here's my flour from when I measured before. What I'll do, I'll move the camera over so you guys can see the mixing process as well. All right, so what you're gonna do now, you're just gonna mix your sourdough starter in your water just so it's mixed up a little bit. Now once that's done, there's still a little bit of chunks in there, but that's okay. I'm gonna take my flour and salt mixture here, add it in. And now this is the part that's going to be real fun. It gets nice and gooey. So I just like to bring it from the outside to the in. And sometimes I'll just give it up and down here in the center here just to get some of it mixed together here. And I'll even turn the bowl a bit, acting like a mixer. And once it's fairly mixed in, I'll start pulling it from the edges in to the center. And now once I've got a good little base of it all mixed up, so I'm not going to splash the liquid everywhere, I'll start pulling it from the edges into the center. And when I get the liquid on top, I'll just kind of bring it forward to the center here a bit. Try to get all the lumps and everything mixed out. Here we go. So this process can take a few minutes here. And like I said, it's going to be really sloppy and wet. But you can see now it's starting to come together a bit. And you just want to get it so it's just mixed and there's no more flour visible. Have it all mixed in so the water mixture is mixed in with the salt and flour. And your sourdough starter is mixed in nicely with that as well. And it's good just to kind of bring it in and fold it to the center. Oops, just got it everywhere. That happens. And as you can see, there's still a little bit of flour in here, so we will keep going. This is a good time too. You can kind of mix it around like this a bit. Try to get it mixed together. So I'm going to go right from the bottom now and pull it right up to the top. So you're making sure you get all the flour from the bottom, not sticking and staying dry under there. Okay, we are close to looking good here. So I'm just going to give the sides a quick little scrape here. There we go. I'm going to take my scraper here and just give it a little bit of a scrape off. And let the sourdough mixture sit here. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash. Okay, so you can see it's really kind of a hot mess here. It's just going to sit like this for half an hour. It's called autolyse, and it's basically going to be your hydration, where your water is getting into the flour, hydrating it. So I put this in my oven for half an hour, and when I come back in half an hour, we'll do our first fold and flip. So I'll show you that process in half an hour. All right, it's been half an hour. You can tell it's pretty kind of sloppy still. So now what we need to do is flip it over, fold it over a few times so that starts building the gluten in the flour. So you want to make sure your hand is wet, otherwise it's going to stick really badly to your hand. So you just take it under, and it's going to be pretty sloppy for the first few folds. And you just go around the edge of the bowl until you flip it over pretty much once. There we go. So now we let that sit for another half an hour, and then we'll repeat the process in the next half hour. All right, it's been another half hour here. So you can tell it's getting a little firmer now, and I've got it in the oven still with the light on, and it's starting to rise a little bit at the same time. So we're going to do this process 5 or 6 times. You can play it by ear and depending on how the gluten starts working out. But here we go. You can see it's already a little bit more glutinous than it was before. And don't forget to make sure you wet your hands. Sometimes I'll just fold it over twice in the same thing. Fold, there we go. And you can tell it sticks on your hands, so make sure you use that water. Okay, back in the oven for another half hour. All right, we're on the third flip and fold here now. As you can see, it's starting to get pulled together here. It's not so wet and sloppy. And that's the gluten building up in the dough now, which is exactly what we want. So there we go. And you can see some, I don't know if you can see here, but there's some air bubbles starting to form in here as well. So there we go. Third flip. We will let it sit for another half hour and be back. All right, we're going to fold number 5 now. As you can see, it's starting to get really stretchy, which is exactly what you want to see. You don't want to tear it, but I'm just kind of showing you what it looks like. And you can see it's holding together nicely now. So we'll let that sit. We'll probably do 1 or 2 more flips, and then we'll put it in the fridge to rest overnight. Here we go, our last fold. It's looking nice. Oh, it just jumped out of the bowl and onto my shirt. That's a first. And 1 more. Okay, what I'm going to do is saran wrap the top quickly, and then we'll stick it in the fridge. Wrapped up. So I'll put this in the fridge overnight, and then first thing in the morning we will show you the next step. Alright, it's the next morning here. I got the sourdough in here. It's ready to go. So what you want to do is get some flour. You want to flour your surface down really well because it's going to be super sticky still. So I just like to use it through a sifter still, just so you can spread it out nicely. Get quite a bit on. And because I'm doing a double batch, it's going to be quite a bit. I like to put a bit on my scraper as well. And we're just going to pull it off out of the bowl here. There we go. And the first thing that you really want to do is get your bowl into some water, because dough is really hard to get off. I'll just leave that until I get this sorted out for you guys to check out. So now this part, you want to divide your dough into even pieces. I don't weigh it, I just kind of eyeball it. This one I should get about 3 to 4 out of. So you're just going to go down with your pastry scraper. And I'm actually going to probably put some more flour over here so that I can fold it and let it rest there. So all you're going to do is grab your dough, fold it over from each sides, and then from side to side, and then flip it over, and take your scraper and just form a nice little ball out of it. So my dough is still pretty loose, which is okay. You probably could have used maybe another 1 or 2 folds yesterday, but I can tell it's probably going to give me a lot of air bubbles in it. You can already see some of it right here. There's a whole bunch of air in it, which will give you some nice airy dough. If you want a heavier dough, you may need a little bit more flour, or you may need to just, like I said, fold it a bit more. So here we go, we'll get the next piece here. I'll probably do this one in a 4 today. Depends on the pan you're using as well. If you want a bigger loaf, obviously you're going to use more dough. You can already see there's air bubble right there coming up. I'll probably leave this one whole because I've got the new Dutch oven, so it'll be a nice big loaf. So let's fold this one over like this. Fold it over here. And you can tell it's super loose still. And fold it up and over like that. I'm going to move this one over a bit here too as well. So now you want to let this rest on your counter for 30 minutes. And once we get that rested, we'll put it into our bowls and it needs to go back into the fridge. Here's a little close up here of it. I just use a normal bowl. What you want to do is get some kind of towel, you stick it in your bowl here. And what you're going to do is flour it really well so that the dough doesn't stick to your cloth. So I go fairly heavy on it. You can see that there. And then what we're going to do is take your dough here. It's a bit wet still on top, so sometimes I like to just give it a bit of dusting as well, and that will help prevent the towel from sticking as well. So here we go, we're just going to drop it in like this. Nice and easy. We're just going to fold your towel over like this, and we'll stick it in the fridge for a few hours and let it rest. So I'll do that with all 3 of these ones here. And I'll do the bigger one for this. We'll just dust the top as well. And I'll probably just add a bit more to this one just to be on the safe side here. Fold your cloth over. And I'm using a pot this time as well because I'm out of bowls. Use what you have. It will not change the outcome of it at all. You basically just need a bowl for it to rest in. This one I'll put a bit more on because it's still a bit sticky on the top. There we go. So we'll put that in the fridge now, and I'll come back after these marinades today. So when I come back, I'll show you the baking process when I get back home. Alright, it's been about 4 hours since I separated the dough. I'm going to turn my oven on to 500 degrees. And then as well, you're going to want to put your Dutch oven or whatever pot or pan you're using in the oven so it preheats as well. I'll do my recording where one in my new Dutch oven, and we'll see which one does a better job. Everyone says you should let your pans heat up for 45 minutes after the ovens come up to temperature, but I generally put them in when I preheat and then wait a few minutes after it's come up to temperature, and I've never had a problem. It's always baked really well. So once it's warmed up, we'll show you the next step. Alright, the pans have been in there for about 20 minutes, half hour. I let them sit about 5-10 minutes, a bit longer, just to warm up because I've never done the Dutch oven, so I want to make sure it was hot enough. So I've got my bread here, ready to go. So I'll just pull the containers up and out. You want to make sure you have scissors here because you want to cut the tops of them. So all I do is unwrap it this way, flip it over, wrap it in, and same with the other one here. I just flip it over on my hands into the pan, and I'm just going to take the scissors, give it a quick little cut, and that's going to release some air so it expands and rises nicely. Gonna pop the lids back on. So they go in the oven for 20 minutes on 500 degrees, and after 20 minutes we'll take the lids off and then go in for another 25 minutes. And I usually lower it to about 480, 475. All right, the timer is about to go off. So I will pull the lid off. That's what it looks like. Risen nicely. Same with the one in the Dutch oven. Beautiful. Pop it back in. I'll put it on to 480 and then for another 25 minutes. All right, it's been 25 minutes. I'm gonna pull one out here quickly. Okay, we'll do them both just so we can take a look. And this is the one from here. So it should be nice golden brown. You can probably go a bit longer if you want to, but when you knock it, it should be kind of like a hollow sound and looks great. Some days it cooks a little more on top, gets a little bit darker, but it's your preference, whatever you like. And here's one from the Dutch oven. So now the Dutch oven one, it's a bit flatter, so if you want a bigger loaf like this one that's raisin more, you can add more dough to it. So instead of cutting into threes like we did, we could probably have done two, and then it would have been a really nice big sourdough bread for you. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that quick video on how to make sourdough. Hope you found some quick tips out of that, and let me know how it goes for you. I love making sourdough. It's so good. I'll probably eat some of this evening once it's cooled down. So don't forget, guys, to share my videos around, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and we'll see you out there. Have a great day.